had to get up and turn on my light and everything. When you spend time with God, the revelations that you will get. I was sitting here spending time with God and just going over different things that people have said to me. Sometimes at night in my head, my thoughts will come and it'll be just on repeat of negative, hurtful things people have said to me in my life. And recently, and that's how I know that I'm close to breakthrough and that the devil is trying to knock me down, is because somebody that was recently in my life, just things, bad seeds that they planted into my mind, I'm busy pulling them weeds of the things that they said that I know is not true because I know who God says I am. But I'm sitting here talking to God about these things, right? And just thinking about what they said, and if you know that it's not true, and plucking those seeds and talking to God about those things. And God reminded me about the snake talking to Eve in the garden, because I was laying here and I was like, what a snake, right? And God said, who does that sound like? If a person in your life is planting bad seeds in your head, like a snake, like the snake in the garden, like the snake in the garden planting seeds in your mind, who does that sound like? Who was the snake in the garden of Eden, right? And I went to Genesis 3 and I started to read about when Eve met the snake, who we all know is the devil. And if you didn't know, now you do. And this is what Genesis 3 is saying about the snake and what he said. Remember, our words are seeds. They are seeds, and whether we're speaking to ourselves or others, we are planting seeds. So always speak good things and always keep your mind focused on things above. But let's see the interaction that Eve had with the snake. And we see right here in Genesis 3 the fall. And we see right here in Genesis 3 the fall, the devil, who's disguised as a snake, asks Eve if God really said she must not eat of any tree in the garden. And then Eve explains that they can eat fruit of all of the trees except for the middle of the tree in the garden. And God said, do not touch it or they will die. And that's when the devil says, you will not certainly die, the serpent said to the woman, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. This is what happens when we listen to lies from the enemy, lies from snakes, when we let the seeds that they plant into our minds, that he plants into our minds, sprout and grow. I was thinking about this because I was asking God, how long did it take her to eat the fruit from the garden after he said that, after he had her question God's word and God's truth? Because it doesn't say like right after. It doesn't really give a time of when she ate it. Did she eat it right there in front of the snake? Did he slither away? Was it a couple days where going over in her head? Was she asking herself like, I want to be like God? I want to know from good and evil. I want to do that. Was she pondering it? I mean, she could have just right then and there ate it. But I like to think, just as a woman, we think about things for a while. We think about things for a long time usually. I mean, sometimes we're impulsive. Actually, I'm really impulsive. But I like to think she went a while without eating the fruit. And it just kept going over and over, replaying in her head. Though she knew God's truth, she did not obey. She instead went with her flesh and what her flesh would want, to be like God and to know between good and evil. She even got Adam to do it too, because women, we are influencers of men. Men lead, but we influence them on which way to go. So it's just such an awesome revelation that God gave me tonight, that we have to know his word. We have to plant the seeds that is God's word into our minds, so we'll be able to decipher between the enemy's lies and God's truth. Because her eating that fruit is the reason why we feel pain in childbirth. She disobeyed, and obedience is better than sacrifice. Her obedience would have been more sweet and more glorifying to God than that fruit ever would have been. Her obedience would have tasted way more sweet than any fruit, anything ever could. So, any lies that replay in your mind, any seeds, bad seeds that the enemy has planted in your head, whether it's your own thoughts or something somebody else has told you, pluck those seeds, get them out. You really have to compare them to God's word, know God's word, study God's word, and obey him. His fruit is way sweeter than anything this world, anything the Garden of Eden, anything else could ever offer.